Hello, this is Lisa LaRose here on Connect to Love on PRNFM, and I am joined by the incredible Michael J. Russ. I want to say welcome, Michael. I'm always excited for the adventure that awaits on the show with you. How are you today?
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely awesome. It's magnificent. The sun isn't shining as much today, but as a sun worshiper, that I look outside and I go, oh, okay, I can see a little bit of blue sky, but that's just the way. That's just life. I can deal with it, and I'm a happy camper doing what I'm loving in the moment. So
I was looking at a quote by Joseph Worthen, and it said, "Every day is an adventure," and I have to say that every day in my world is an adventure, and I know that it is the same with you. From the moment that you open your eyes and finish your meditation, maybe even perhaps before that, Michael, you are ready and open to whatever is going to unfold. You let things unfold the way that they're meant to. Sometimes you have a general plan, but you can oftentimes have a little speed bump that comes up along the path, but it does not deter you from what you are going to take on. And many of us, I think, feel a little bit trapped in the monotonous routine of everyday life. And we spoke about this a little bit when we were talking about Hector in Search of Happiness, that one day goes to the next. For me, it's measured by garbage day. I go, oh my gosh, it's garbage day again. I have to get the recycling out. Last night was garbage day, and it's always a late night because I have a lot of houses to take garbage out at. But it's okay. I don't get frustrated. I don't look at it like as a drudgery. It's just there's nothing humdrum about my life. I just take on, okay, this is done, and then I go on to the next thing. And I don't really have a book that lists anything that says a to-do list. I've never been a list maker, but I kind of just embrace whatever's supposed to show up, and I've been a student of allowing things into my life for a very long time, as I know you are, Michael. So you don't have to be, a mountain or a desert to have an adventure. You can sleep under the stars in your backyard, right? You've been seeing a lot of eagles, and for me, I see hawks, and I always look to them, and I see them spread their wings, and they kind of soar and coast on the currents, and I think, wow.
We got hawks.
Where are they going to go?
Bald eagles. I saw them again yesterday. They're majestic birds. And what's interesting is I have this completely different feeling in me when I see a bald eagle. I don't know where that comes from. I mean, the majestic aspect of them is something else. They have the ability to see a mouse from 500 feet. I mean, it's just amazing what they can do and how they can live. But I don't even know if it's more than that. It's just they're so beautiful, such a beautiful bird. And to be graced with their presence just makes you feel amazing. Just makes you feel fabulous. Like life it's life affirming, I guess, is probably the term I would use when I see a bald eagle. We got hawks around here. We've got osprey. We've got a lot of different flora and fauna. We've got deer. We got little black bears, the big black bears. We've got all possums and raccoons, and there's forested area around here, so anything can come out of there. And the beautiful thing is, it's life that's simply just transforming around you. It's amazing. It's amazing to me to have that, and people who live in the city don't see that sort of thing. If you live in a concrete jungle, you don't have the possibility of seeing deer down on the corner, or to drive out of your house and see 4 or 5 deer sitting there getting ready to munch on all your plants. You don't really have bald eagles flying around cities, or you have possums and raccoons. Definitely have those. Little skunks and little interesting like that, animals like that. But it's green space is it's wonderful. It's exciting to have around you. It's healing. It's healing. Green space is healing. And,
I would say, Michael, that an eagle is probably one of your spirit animals, one of your totems. Many years ago, I had an opportunity to hear Ted Andrews speak, and he wrote several books on animals and when you see them, what their meanings are. And it's eagles are, I believe, one of the highest flying birds, raptors. And so I think that when you see an eagle, as you do, it's a reminder of soaring to new heights and transformation being at your doorstep. I think that they're an incredibly strong bird, and so it reminds you also of your inner strength. I'm going to have to look it up for you and what Ted Andrews has to say, because it's a fascinating book. And he was kind of like a wizard. He would come and speak, and he had this cloak and animals all around him, and he had the best sense of humor. And it's he's now on the other side, but I really cherished the fact that I had an opportunity to see him. And I think what he really did, he always encouraged people to live life to the fullest, and no matter what it was. And for me, hawks show up for me everywhere, every which way but Sunday. And I see them, and when I'm driving and I see one, I wave to them, and I'm like, hey, thank you for the reminder. Look forward to whatever is next to be. I just consider it sort of like an auspicious omen that I'm on the right path and that they're watching over me, which I think is kind of a fun way to experience life.
Oh, yeah. I agree 110%. Hawks and eagles, anytime we see something that's alive, right, that's around you, it reminds you that, number one, you're not alone, and number two, there's other things unfolding out there that you might not, we get so caught up in your own little world that you don't see it, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You don't think about it. And it's good to get out and to understand that the world is bigger than your little enclave.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yeah. Sure. Well, it's so easy to get caught up in the rush of your day and distracted by things that have to be done. I mean, how many times I'll go out and play after I get this done. I'll go out and do this or do that, and then the day disappears, and you never got a chance to do that one thing that you really wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And
True.
I think that's really what it is, that nobody ever tells you that living life is an adventure, that we have an opportunity in this short time that we're here on Earth to experience a lot of different things. And I know for you, Michael, that you were like me. I wasn't in my parents. My dad wasn't in the forces, but he was in hockey. So we moved a lot. And one of the things that was so interesting is we had our family unit, because we really had each other when we moved to a new city or whatever adventure. But life with my dad was a lot of fun. My parents really enjoyed each other. They liked going out dancing. They liked doing different things, cruising, going to, I don't know, just lots of different social events. And really, they enjoyed their friends, and I have to say that was one of the gifts that my mother had and carried with her, is that she really loved her friends. And at one point in her life, after my dad had passed, she decided she would get in her car, and she said, I'll see you later. I'm going to go visit my friends and go across country and go and stop in any little town that seems interesting. And I would get every few weeks I would get a pack of pictures, and it was her and her little traveling companion. I got her this little wind-up hamster that sang "Everybody is Kung Fu Fighting," and so she would have a little traveling companion, and it was a conversation piece. And she would meet all these different people along the way that would take her picture, and she saw friends, and she was gone for probably 8 months. And people say, well, what's your mom doing? I'm like, I don't know where she is today. But she didn't feel beholden to check in with me, and I wasn't worried about her because I just trusted that she was safe. And it was an adventure that she wanted to see. She wanted to see out-of-the-way places. And she really didn't have, she knew she wanted to be in a certain place to see a friend. And, she decided she wanted to stay longer or, find the path less traveled, that's what she did. And it was a wonderful adventure for her, and I was so happy that she did it.
That's cool. Yeah, that's absolutely amazing that someone do that. I have never heard of anyone that actually did that before. Did she do any work along the way, or odd jobs, or things?
Nope.
Or did she just left and did that?
Yep.
Perfect. That's
yep.
awesome.
Whatever it was that
so
she
amazing.
wanted to do that day. Yeah, she was
explain.
retired, and she decided that it was something that she always wanted to do. And when she was, my dad passed away when he was only 52, so she had a lot of years. She ended up remarrying, and the gentleman that she was married to, she didn't really want to get married again, and he said, no, we'll go and we'll do all these things and see all these places. And so she drank the Kool-Aid and got married, but he didn't really want to do those things. And she just had this burning desire. And she said, this is something that I really want to do before I get too old to be able to do it. And they went their separate ways, and he was really mad when she went off on this adventure. She said,
I'm sure he was.
Well, but she was honest. She owned the truth of who she was.
That's fantastic.
Really,
That's
truly,
fantastic.
and
that
she
is
knew.
True power.
Mm-hmm.
True power, right there.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a different era. It was a different time. I think you can still do that today. I've probably come across a couple people that have made changes, not necessarily for that particular period of time, but maybe gone off for 3 or 4 weeks and explored various areas of the country and done whatever they wanted to do at the time. My mother was we were stationed. My dad was in the Air Force, of course, and we were stationed in Taiwan, the Philippines, and other places. And because those areas had only a few Americans, and I'm African American, so there were very few blacks that lived in those areas. African American, in the Air Force, Army, or whatever the facet of the military. My mother was somebody who brought people together. She had friends. She went to Tuskegee and graduated, I think, in 52, something like that. 28, 38, 40. Yeah, somewhere around. No, not 40. She was somewhere in the early 40s. She graduated, and mid-40s, just a little bit later. And what was interesting is that she knew a lot of the flyers. A lot of the flyers came out of the Tuskegee program and others, and it was fun because my mother was a party hostess. She brought people together, and they had dinner parties. I'm talking about formal dinner parties with all of the places, settings, and all of the and everybody came dressed up, coat, tie. Music played. There was dancing after the party. It kind of went, and it lasted all night. The parties lasted all night, literally, because a lot of these flyers didn't know if they were coming home after the next mission in Vietnam.
Wow.
They didn't know, and they would bring things from the United States. If they were in Alaska, they'd bring king crab. They'd bring liquor. They would bring on. They'd have spots on their planes. B-52 bombers or whatever it was when they were coming over, they would have spots to they would make sure they brought something from the U.S. that they knew they couldn't find, and they'd share it. It was party time every weekend, every other weekend. People get together and just had fun, enjoyed each other's company. And we had a house with a large screened-in porch that was perfect for parties, dinner parties, and in the Philippines, and it was fun. I grew up kind of experiencing this, and her and my father's, getting out and about, and they encouraged us to get out and meet other youth, to have pickup games, things of that nature. So my life was completely different than. Because I didn't live in the United States for 4 years in the 60s. We came back in 68, and totally different childhood than most people. But it was on purpose because my dad wanted us he wanted to get as far away from the South. I know he grew up in North Florida, North Central Florida, and he wanted to get as far away from Jim Crow and the other segregation laws. He just wanted to go to another part of the planet. And so when he went to Tuskegee, he got into the ROTC program. That was his plan. Got a sort of a technical degree, electrical, and he was off to the races. Never looked back. And then married my mom, who was his college sweetheart, and then had us, and one at a time. And we went to Alaska for several years. We lived in Nebraska. We lived in Taiwan, the Philippines. We lived in Colorado and Turkey for 3 years, and upstate New York before he retired. So we had been all over. What it taught me was how to make friends. There are people who you're going to find is one of two camps. People who experienced that from their father being in the military, where they were able to go with them. Because now it's completely different. A lot of times the military doesn't pay for families to go along, but back then they did. They paid for your family to come and live with you. You had that opportunity. Turkey now, you can't do that. In Turkey, you can't go there as a family any longer for any of the bases. But when we were there, you could. So you learn. The people are in two camps. Either they're the youth that grew up within that environment, moving around. Either they didn't like it because they didn't like making new friends, or they loved it and they liked making new friends. Those are the two camps that they're in. And we were happily in the camp where we just loved moving. We loved moving, going to see a new place. My parents always made sure that we were exposed to the environment, local environment, its people, the sights, the sounds, that we got involved in terms of meeting the community and seeing things, seeing the history of the area. So I was able to see a lot of some of the places you read about in books when it comes to World War II. I was able to see that in the Philippines because the Philippine island was taken over by Japan. And so there were a lot of things. In Taiwan, same thing. So it's a lot of the history that people are reading in books today. I actually was in the places where that history occurred, and I got to see it. And I was really, it gave me a fascination for history. In Europe and other places, the World War II sites, the sites that are much older, medieval castles and churches, and all kinds of stuff, cathedrals, history in Rome, the Roman Empire was huge, and I've seen many things associated with it, and it just gives you a different perspective. It's about contrast. It makes me appreciate where I am now more than some people who've never left. I ran into somebody the other day that hadn't left. Where she is? She hadn't left this city. She'd never left. I said,
wow.
What? No, I've never left. Do you have a passport? I got one just recently, but I've never left. I said, wow, use that puppy. See how many stamps you can get in it from cities. It used to be before the Euro that every country was a different stamp. Now it's one stamp for the European Union. However, it's fun to get some contrast in life. I've talked about this a lot. It gives you the kind of perspective that, in my view, can help you not be so upset about something in your life. Because when you experience something, you experience somebody else's suffering that you could never really imagine, you start thinking about, when something happens to you, you have something to contrast your suffering with. And that is contrast in every area of our life with regard to, your friends, the number of friends you have, those you don't have. You appreciate relationships. I appreciate relationships because I don't know how long they're going to last, and I don't necessarily yearn to have them last forever. Some do, some don't. Some are momentary. Some are split second.
Right.
Here and gone. And I don't necessarily have this need or desire to make everybody a long-term friend, because I think in life, people come into your life when they're supposed to come into your life, and they leave your life when they're supposed to leave your life. And if you've learned something from them, and you've imparted something to them, they've imparted something to you, that was the reason why they were there in the first place. It wasn't about all the other 3D things that people engage in relationships for. I mean, they're there for a reason, in some way, to help you move forward, or you're there to help them move forward. It's all about ascension in the end, about accomplishing whatever soul intentions that you have for yourself. And I'm going to tell you something. This is interesting because I've believed this for a long time, and that is that your feelings will always be the litmus test for whether or not you're doing the right things in life. You have to pay attention to your feelings. And in transformation, same thing. In transformation, how you feel will always let you know whether you've changed. And the way you respond to the same situation, if you respond differently, you've changed. If you keep responding the same way, expecting a different result, you haven't changed.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like when somebody wants to lose weight. If you're not losing weight, then something has to change. Your mental attitude about it, the self-talk you have, the things you're undergoing, what you're eating, something has to change. You cannot keep doing the exact same thing expecting something different to occur. That is pretty much the definition of stress and being out of control, because that's you have to in some way change. And
right.
I love that proof of transformation. We all want to know if we're getting ahead. The answer is, if the same thing came up, when that same thing happens, do you respond differently? Do you explode, implode, react, or do you simply take a step back from it, take a breath, and examine your own perceptions about what just happened and remain calm and move through it? Right.
And I think also, Michael, and you're very good at this, you go beyond lack and wanting and victimhood. I could never, ever in a million years even imagine you seeing yourself as a victim, because you just don't. Whatever happens, you take it and you say, well, that was interesting. You take it to the highest expression of living for you. Your life, my life, nobody's life is perfect. We're never going to be on this trajectory of what we think perfection is. But one of the things that I really embody is that every path, everything unfolds perfectly. And even though I don't always understand the wisdom of it, and I remind myself, when something challenging happens that other people perceive as bad or horrible or whatever, I can't go there. I either have to be a hypocrite, because I tell people all the time, everything unfolds perfectly. We may not see the wisdom in it, but eventually we will. And I look back on my life at all of the different things, the teachers in my life, both in college and high school, and the people that I've met that have made profound impacts on me, and what it was that sort of led me down this path. And for me, when I was in college, my dad got cancer, and he was just 50 years old. He went in for what was supposed to be like routine kidney stones, and they found out that he had renal cell cancer, and they opened him up and sewed him back up. And what was so interesting in that time period, he was in a really wonderful hospital. They just kept saying, I just don't feel right. I don't feel right. And I said, no, we're going to send you home. And he just said, no, you need to take a look at this. And here, blood had encapsulated behind his spleen. And at first, had he been home, he would have been gone. And here, they were able to save him. And he ended up being in the hospital for a month after that. And it was a really interesting journey, because I was at college and we had a family business. I had to come home and just sort of put my studies on hold because my mom needed some assistance, and I never thought anything other than I just did what was called. I just felt in my heart that I needed to be here. And I watched him. He went through lots of different processes, lots of different things, and nothing really seemed to work. He ended up going to NIH, and they did an experimental treatment, and it was very interesting. And I often think about it because when somebody says something to me about my parents or my dad passing, and they say, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and I'm like, "No, it was probably one of the most transformational times because he, up until probably the last 3 months of his life, he was vibrant and still doing so many different things. He wasn't going to let this stop him." And so when his health started to fail and he made the decision that he was done with any medical intervention and wanted to be at home. And my grandmother came, and we were all by his bedside near the end. And I was holding him, and I felt when he passed, he took his last breath, I felt his soul leave his body. And that, to me, was probably one of the most transformational things because we oftentimes have this fear of death. We have this fear of what is there. And it was the most peaceful, beautiful moment. And I was just completely at peace. And I think the only time I really cried was when they played My Way at his funeral. Somebody sang and played the guitar, and because that was basically the way my dad lived his life, My Way. Frank Sinatra's My Way. But I will tell you, Michael, I was on this trajectory I wanted to go to medical school, I wanted to do this, do that. Had that not occurred, I would not have changed my trajectory. I ended up going back to university and finishing. My dad was able to see me graduate before he passed, but I didn't end up going back to school for that medical school training. I ended up starting my own business a few years after he passed, and that enabled me to have the financial freedom so that I could study and pursue holistic health. And then finally I was at an event one time as I was really involved in working with essential oils and learning the science behind them. And this was well before it was hip and trendy. But I was at an event, and this woman was talking to me. She said to me, this is a stranger, and we're talking. She goes, "Man, you know so much stuff. You need to come out of the closet." And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "You need to start practicing." And I thought, really? Never thought about that. Never thought about getting an office. And sure enough, that's what I did the next week. I was like, okay, where can I get an office? And I opened it up, and I never advertised, but people found me. People who needed me found me. And what was so interesting about it, most of those people were out of balance with cancer. And had I not learned what I did with my father from a firsthand experience, I don't know that I would have had the wisdom or the knowledge or a lot of the things. But who would have ever thought that path would have led me to that moment in time?
It was amazing.
And it really was a gift. It really was a blessing.
It's true. Maybe the way I look at life sometimes is, or most of the time is, sometimes your entire life could boil down to an interaction with somebody as a result of your being in that business, the way that you made them feel, and the way that they felt when they interacted with you. It's pretty amazing. I mean, we are here for a lot of different reasons, in my view. Somebody told me once, there's nobody that you'll ever run into in your lifetime, no matter how brief or how long, that you haven't run into in another lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
I think about that sometimes. I go, and it would almost make you say, "Hey, good to see you again." When you're when you're talking, interacting with somebody, someone's asking you for directions. You say, "Good to see you again." You go, "What? What are you talking about?" Yeah, I don't know. In another life, we had some sort of interaction. I'm just saying hello again. We talked about. Step back for a second. You talked about the victimhood and blame and how I don't engage in those things, and it's a learned response, because based on a foundation of understanding that that my life is all about control. I learned to start controlling myself within the context of my life. Not controlling life, because you can't do that. Everything outside of you is beyond control. But what we can control is the way we respond to life. And victimhood and blame are examples of not understanding that principle, not understanding that the actual fact, the universal fact that we can't control what goes on outside of us. So we blame, and we become a victim. When that happens, when we brand ourselves as a victim, we give away our power. We give away our power to control our own responses, our own thoughts, our own feelings. And that is something I'm vehemently against. I understand that basically I have a part. I play a role in everything that happens in my life because I create the reality. It's somebody. This came full circle when I had I went to a seminar with this really fascinating businessman who we were able to get him to come out from Orlando to the West Coast. It was a very expensive session for the time for the time of the decade it was. It was in the 80s. And he was a phenomenal man, just really, really deeper than what you saw on the surface. He was a multimillionaire. He's a best-selling author, New York Times best-selling author, and we did a workshop with him, and I was blown away because none of the stuff that was in the workshop was in his books.
Oh, how fascinating! At all.
Yeah, it was like we walked in. It was a weekend workshop. A retreat sort of, where we all came to the same hotel and we hung out. We had rooms. We were there for 2 full 8-hour sessions with this guy. And it was one of the most brilliant sessions, 2 days, that I've ever had in my life. Because a lot of what I learned that day shaped my future in terms of the way I responded to life. And one of the things that the whole concept of inner conversation, for me, your own self-talk and how that impacts your life, had its beginnings there. It had its beginnings there. And that was before I got into sales, and the sales business that I got into, the industry I've been into for 40 years. And that is, we're talking about the nucleus of your inner conversation, your mind, that words matter, that you just don't take them for granted. You just don't go out and start speaking badly of yourself and your life and everything like that, because there's a consequence to doing that, because words have the power to create your reality. And you have to think very heavily about the reality that you're creating. When you make yourself a victim, you're creating a reality based on blame, based on somebody else controlling your life. And I told somebody the other day, I said, who had gotten a divorce, and they were having a problem, a challenge, great challenge with the whole thing. And I said, look, you've got 2 choices here. You can either claim your sovereignty in this whole situation and take control of your thoughts, your feelings, and your responses, or you can make them responsible for how you feel and what you're thinking and how you're responding. You can become a puppet, and they can be the puppet master. That's what happens when you blame, when you brand yourself a victim. You make whatever the situation is that you're blaming, that's responsible for the blame, you're being a victim, you make that in control of you. And when you start framing it that way, you have to ask yourself, look, do I want to jump every time that person says something? Do I want to jump every time that person does something? No. I have the ability to say no to that and to not respond or react, I should say, to that. And so I handled 2 divorces completely differently. I was very calm. I was like, this is just, it's just something else, something that goes on in life. You don't give it the credence, give it the importance. It only has the importance that you give it. If you invest in it, you invest in it. And that's where I started becoming very careful, being very careful about what I invested my feelings, emotions, and thoughts into. And a lot of things don't deserve it, because most of them don't last longer than 24 hours. The little things on a daily basis. We react to, we respond to, we get upset by, we get into disagreements about. Tomorrow will be a different story and a different subject, so why invest in it today? Why do that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The other thing is perfection. I loved what you said about perfection, and perfection has always, to me, I've always seen it as a moving target. You have an idea of perfection, and once you get there, your idea of perfection has changed. It's a moving target. You'll never hit the bullseye of perfection, and it's important not to put so much pressure on yourself to achieve or be a certain place in your life, and seeing that as perfection, because what that can do, that perception of perfection can control you, control your thoughts.
Say that a couple times.
Yeah,
quickly, Michael.
Yeah, your perception of perfection.
I can't even get my lips to try to form that at the moment because I've got this big smile on my face
when
you said that.
Yeah, when it was coming out, I was going, "Don't mess this up." That was
wow. No,
I was halfway
great.
through that, going, "Are you going to be able to put that together?" Yeah,
you did.
It's true, though.
One of the things I really want to applaud you about too is when that speaker came, and this has to do with expectations, and I see this a lot with individuals that I interact with, their expectations of others. So when that speaker came and he didn't just present the material in his book, he presented something completely unexpected.
Yeah.
You
totally
were like, wow, how amazing is this? Rather than other people who would say, well, that's not what we were expecting. We were expecting him to teach what was in the book. That really was terrible. Your perception was, wow, this is so amazing. This is like unlocking the treasure chest of what other people don't even have an opportunity to learn, because I've got the master here and he's sharing this with me, and it's not in a book where anybody can find it. Wow, what a golden opportunity.
That's true.
And I think you do that all the time.
I appreciate it. It's a learned. These are things I've learned to do, and I practice them on a daily basis, so I become very proficient at them. And this is what I tell people: you just can't do something once and then leave it. If you pick up a book and you read something in that book that strikes a chord, adopt it, use it in your own life. You're not going to use everything in a book, but you may get one or two things out of it that resonate with you at the time that can help you move to a different level in life, right? And what this gentleman was doing was, back in the day, in those 2 days, it was showing us how to use the 5 inches between our ears to make our lives better, make ourselves better, be happy, be successful, and be more loving in life. This is a man, by the way. This is a man who would sit down at dinner at 5 o'clock, because when he was a millionaire, he had a chef, and he sat down to dinner as a family. He, his 2 sons, his current wife, and his ex-wife, they all sat down together for dinner.
Wow.
Every day that he was there in his house, they would sit down for dinner and they'd talk about life, talk about what's going on in life. And it's pretty amazing, pretty darn amazing.
Totally.
So when you and I took that as a model. That number one, he said, and when we asked him about it, he said you don't have to be mean, you don't have to be ugly. You can be understanding. You don't have to get upset. You can just basically explain where you're coming from, and you can listen to where they're coming from, and you can meet in the middle, if possible. You can't control what the other person is thinking or saying or doing. However, you can make an effort, and if they acquiesce to that effort, they decide, hey, that's right. A lot of times we get into these right and wrong battles. In relationships, they're quite common, a right or wrong battle, because there's this fight for dominance. And in relationships of all kinds, friendships, of intimate relationships, a fight for dominance. Work relationships, there's a fight for dominance. But you know what? You don't need to fight for dominance. All you have to do is be you. And
absolutely
be honest with yourself, be ethical, have some sort of life philosophy that's founded in morals and ethics and compassion and empathy and love and kindness. If you have that, then you can it's a foundation from which you can build a happy life for yourself. And that's the this guy he taught us how to use the 5 inches between our ears in a way that we hadn't thought about.
Yay!
I'm like, wow,
that's great.
I'm blown away by it. We were talking about this forever. We were our minds were blown completely. We had to go pick up the pieces. We had to. That's how much they were blown. We were like, everything we thought about life was completely thrown out the window. Now, this guy's teaching us about language that we speak, and how when you say I don't do that, your mind doesn't understand don't. So really, what you're telling yourself is I do that. Frame it differently. Yep. Say what you are, not what you aren't. Something as simple as that. Because I find people all the time, their inner conversation is leading the way, is telling me exactly what they're thinking. I don't have to guess. You're in a conversation, the way you talk about yourself and your life and what you're involved in, whatever, your relationship, whatever. It tells me everything about you. I don't even have to ask. I know because you're literally telling me what your real underlying thinking is, regardless of what I'm hearing. The language is telling me a different story. And It will do that. It will always do that. And you can get to the heart of how somebody feels about life by just listening to what they say. And,
100%.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. And I think, Michael, when you have an opportunity, I had an opportunity to hear and meet Wayne Dyer when he was speaking up at Lilydale, and my friend arranged for him to come up there, and so I got to kind of work behind the scenes and assist him in getting everything ready and whatnot.
Really?
And he was just as down to earth as you would. He was just so warm and welcoming and just a genuine, wonderful person. And I have on my computer that I keep a little note, and it's from his book, Wishes Fulfilled, and it goes along with what we're talking about, and it's a reminder. And he made 3 suggestions, and I'm just going to read the one because I think it's so powerful. He said, commit yourself to your own magnificence. And this is why I have this on my computer. Every time you look in the mirror, remind yourself of that what stares back at you is not an ever-changing body, but an invisibleness that's truly your highest self. Affirm, I am love, I am God, I am worthy, I am infinite. Silently and out loud. Do this frequently so that it eventually becomes your intent and your mantra. This is not an ego exercise. It's an awakening to the incredible miracle that you are. This will help you abandon old patterns you've carried that have impacted personal relationships to this universe and all the inherent beauty and perfection it beholds. And I think about that. Commit to your own. In his book, Wishes Fulfilled.
Oh, his book. Yes. That is awesome. That is completely, utterly awesome.
Yeah, and committing to your magnificence. And I think when you commit to your magnificence, that's how you have an ecstatic adventure and live life fully.
Yes, I agree.
Every aspect of you, all of whatever it is that's looking back at me in the mirror. I'm not going to be the same person I was when I was 6 years old, 16-year-old, 20 years old, whatever. But I can. The internal me is forever young and forever learning, and I can always welcome in new teachers and new wisdom. And that's what I so enjoy about this time with you on the show, Michael, because there are so many little nuggets of wisdom and things that I learn, and I'm like, okay, let's go explore this. And a lot of times our conversations during the week are it's just mind-blowing. Mind-blowing, and they get me going down so many different paths, and it's so inspiring. And I hope for each one of our audience members that you have somebody in your life that you can tune into that equally inspires you, because it truly is a gift and a blessing.
Absolutely, you're right. I couldn't say it any better myself. Wayne's words are awesome. I don't know how much time we have left. How much time do we have left on this? I know this hour flies by.
Yeah, we actually have about 15 minutes, I think.
Oh, that's
from
awesome.
What I had. Yep.
That's awesome. Wayne's world. Wayne was was one of the amazing transformers of people. There are many people who've read books, and when I went through my phase of my awakening, I was hungry for information that could help me own my power. When I discovered the realization, if our audience hasn't had this realization yet, and I think many of you have because you're listening to the show, there's a point in life where you realize that you are the one pulling the strings. You're the one pulling the strings, and that you are a sovereign being. That you're the one responsible for controlling what's going in your going in your mind, what's going in your body, and the relationship you have with spirit, not based on what somebody else says, but the relationship that you create yourself, that you're in charge of, that's based on your rules. And when that happens, when you have that realization, life changes completely because you start examining everything in it. What has happened up to that particular point, and you going forward, the way you interact with life and the people in it, you can see things all of a sudden. All of a sudden, it's like this veil that comes off. There's the doom merchant who always talks negatively, that always sees the negative. The glass is always half empty. The world is always about to crash. Sky is always about to fall. There are people who that's the way they live their life, and people who are fearful of the next thing. I can't wait for the next shoe to drop. I wonder when the next shoe is going to drop. These are all euphemisms that we use. However, they are there for because they are time tested. People say those things, and they say them in jest, but they really mean it. When is the sky going to fall? I want to put everything I have in gold because life isn't going to be the same after September 6th or whatever. At the end of this year or whatever the date may be, or sometime soon. The thing is, when you're creating your reality, you're not listening to other people. You're listening to yourself. You're listening to what's going on. Listen to your higher self. You're listening to your guide. You're listening to what you're hearing in your own head and feeling in your own heart. And your gut, your intuition. What is your intuition, which is really your higher self talking to you? What is that saying? You got somebody who wants you to go do something that you don't feel good about. It doesn't make you feel, it doesn't set right with you, right? And you're like, but I know this person, I like this person, or I love this person, right? And they're telling you something that is kind of just not setting right with you. Do you acquiesce to them, and do you go and do that thing knowing that it doesn't feel right just because you love them or they goat you into doing it? Or do you say, nah, not going to do that. You want to go do that, pal? Go ahead. Knock yourself out. When you make those kinds of decisions and feel good about them afterwards, because, again, it's all about your feelings, as I said, how do you feel? You feel excited? Do you feel joyful? Do you feel impassioned because you made a decision to do or not do something and felt good about it? When you start taking control, that kind of control of your every moment in your life, it is that the amount of happiness that radiates from within you, the amount of love that you give yourself to give to yourself. We have something in the world today called influencers. Social media has spawned thousands, if not upon millions, of influencers. People who see it as their place in life to influence the decisions of other people. And for advertisers, they are like the cat's meow, because they have a zip line into your mind in terms of the power of suggestion. They can zip right into your mind. You trust them, you like them, you love them, and when they say something, you do it. When they say jump, you jump. The problem with this is that maybe you don't need that thing. Maybe you don't. Are you making your own decisions, or are you allowing an influencer to influence you by their power of suggestion? And a lot of young people today are being influenced by other people's suggestion, power of suggestion.
Absolutely.
It's there, but once you pull back the veil, you claim your own sovereignty, and you say, I'm the one in charge of my mind, body, and spirit, not somebody else, not an influencer, or not even my parents or anybody else. I'm in charge. I'm in control. Not even my significant other has that kind of control over me. I can love somebody without giving up who I am, giving up my own sovereignty. I can do that. I can have great friends. I can make relationships with people. Whatever. I can have a job where I have my own sovereignty. It's the one thing I'm not giving away under any circumstances. When you say that, the realizations that follow after that are mind-blowing, because you're then going to find out who your friends are, the real friends. Mm-hmm. You're going to find out whether the love that you have for somebody is real or not. Well, you're going to gain the right to say no, which has always been your right, to say no, because, hey, it doesn't resonate with you. And you'll be living more on the higher frequencies in life than the lower frequencies. It's a brilliant place to be. For some, it takes, we talked about this earlier, that there's an awakening for some people, a conscious awakening. There's a pivot point in life, a pivot point. And we talked a little bit about our own pivot points earlier on in this conversation. And the most important thing for me when I connect with people is who are open to it, is really paying attention to whether something's a pivot point, small or large. It's really, really important, and to think back about why you think a certain way, why you believe a certain thing. What was the pivot point that made you believe that thing, that made you so connected to it, that thought process or that feeling that you have. We all have that, but these points. Someone says something, someone you respect says something. I mean, Denzel Washington's out there all the time talking this real positive stuff about life. He has some brilliant stuff on the web, because he's taken it upon himself to inspire people to be the best version of themselves. I love people like that. Mm-hmm. He's not trying to control me. He's just giving me information that can help me be the best version of myself. I can take it, I can leave it.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find a lot of that, Michael. And when you were talking about the glass half full, half empty, I thought about there's a professor. It's a video where the gentleman has a jar and he starts filling it with pebbles, and he asks the students, "Is this full? Is this full?" And as he keeps putting them in, and it gets to the top, he said, "There's not possibly any more room to put any more stones." And then he said, "Is this full?" And everybody's like, "Yeah, no, absolutely." And then he takes water and he fills the empty spaces with water until it is full and overflowing. And I think it has a lot to do with that in perception and perspective.
That's a brilliant idea.
How we perceive things. And when is your life full? When is it full? I think that is really a realization that each one of us has to come to. That's what self-realization is all about. What brings you joy? What is fun for you to experience? What makes you feel loved? All of those things. I think it's what life is about, this grand adventure. We find these little bits and pieces and these nuggets, and this really feels good, and I'd like to keep that, and that no longer serves me, and you sort of discard it, and you thank whatever it was for the lessons that you learned. Because sometimes, as you said, in relationships, I remember dating this one guy, and when I first met him, I was like, oh my gosh, this is my guy, no doubt about it. And 6 years down the road, I was like, you know what, I recognize that he wasn't really very happy with himself. It took me 6 years to figure this out, to the point where I was so busy making him happy or trying to make sure that he wasn't in a bad mood or whatever else it was, that I lost so much of myself. And I finally had to sit down with him and say, this is not, I said, the person that I want to be with is not you, because I had lost so much of myself without even realizing it, even including my self-esteem. And I don't really have self-esteem issues, but I recognized how giving those little parts of myself away and really acquiescing in my efforts to help him stay happy really did a detriment to me. And he said to me at one point, "Why can't you just leave everything the way that it was?" And I said, "Because this is my life too, right?" I had to walk away. It was, and to go from that point, and then somebody said to me, "Well, you mustn't have really loved him." Because otherwise you would have stayed, right?
Well, yeah, but
whatever. But
I had to have
enough love, right?
Yeah, you might have loved him based on your idea of love at the time, what you thought love was. You thought love was that, and then you discovered that's not what love is.
Right.
Am I right? I mean, you thought love was that, and then, we all have had our, we've walked those stepping stones in terms of relationship. We're on this stone, and then we've got to get to the next stone and the next stone in order to get across the river, creek, or whatever it is, a raging river of life. And it's interesting. I love that you explained that. Number one, thank you for sharing your story. And it resonates with me because, not that I've had that exact same experience, what I have had is my own perceptions of what love and what relationship was. And it's a constant process of growth and expansion. And
so true.
I got to say, in my first relationship of 15, my first marriage of 15 years, no disrespect to my ex-wife, because she was a wonderful person. We never argued. I just felt that my life was supposed to expand beyond the borders of where I was at the time in relationship, and I hadn't experienced my growth spurt yet, my phase of realization, of sovereignty, so to speak. So I was basically, I was in a relationship of what I thought was the relationship that I wanted at the time, because that's all I knew. And this is, somebody said the other day, all you know is all you know. You can only act upon and respond to life based on what you know up to that point. That's it, right? And you learn beyond to respond differently going forward. And there is some discomfort, I could say, involved in the change, and the discomfort lets you know that you are in the process of change, in terms of of transformation, I should say. That discomfort is what you will experience, and the question is, can you break through that discomfort? Can you mitigate it by understanding why that you are going through this and why you're going through it? That it is a change. You're on a transformational pace, and the discomfort is going to be there. Someone is not going to like you very well. The question is, do you argue about it? Do you get upset about it? Do you let them get into your head? And do you try to get into their head? Something you also should really not do is attempt to control someone else. And it's interesting. Yeah, what was the answer to the question of, hey, can't things just stay the way they are? I don't know, because I'm expanding beyond that already. There's no limitation for me. You haven't changed. I've changed. And this goes on in relationships.
So true. And
it happens.
But Michael, it really, it's what makes life an adventure. And I think for each one of us, it is about making that adventure for ourselves. We determine how we live our life fully, and owning our own truth and sovereignty. I love that word, and we're going to have to do a whole show just about that, Michael, because it is so true.
Yeah.
Being able to say.
My entire Life Moves podcast in the last year and a half has been about sovereignty, because in my view, it's the most important aspect of your own journey in life. You either go through life as owning your sovereignty, or you don't. And not owning your sovereignty is like being a ship without a rudder in the middle of the Atlantic and no sail, and you're just pushed around by the current. You have no way of actually navigating to one place or another and getting away from it. There's always something new pushing you around, and you're always reacting to being pushed.
Mm-hmm.
You're being guided somewhere that you didn't necessarily choose. And so thank you for that. Yeah, we'll have to do a show about that in the next couple of weeks. It's a huge aspect of life for me, and it's like a light switch that goes on. And I ask people, are you owning your sovereignty, or are you giving it away? You're letting that person own it, because people get into these arguments, and you witness them, and then they go, well, why didn't this? Why didn't that? Well, because just ask yourself a question: Are you owning your sovereignty in this situation? And they go, what? Yeah. Are you owning your sovereignty? Are you determining what's going into your head? Are you the one that's determining what's going into your body? Are you the one who's determining, how your spirit is impacted, how your consciousness is impacted? Is that you? And then they go, no, I was just basically in the drama of responding to something that they said or reacting to what they said. And you don't go anywhere that way. You don't grow. The growth happens when you respond differently. And it's beautiful.
So true. So I'm going to let you wrap up the show, Michael. I just got another minute or so. So it just
let's just put it this way.
It's been a delight and a pleasure.
No, it really is. When you started out with a beautiful story, we've talked about a lot of different things that kind of all somehow they're all connected. They all tie together. We talked about this earlier. That in order to embrace your own magnificence, something that Wayne Dyer was talking about, embracing your own magnificence, it involves again knowing that you're the one tasked with controlling the 5 inches between your ears. I just wrote down that the 5 inches between your ears is the most valuable real estate you will ever own. So treat it with respect and dignity, and feed it a diet of positivity. You can choose to feed it anything. If you feed it junk food, that's what you're going to get. If you feed it, the best of the best in terms of information that can help it function in an optimal way, then you're going to get a different result, a more positive result. And so you got to think of your mind as real estate. Think of it's just one of the ways that you can look at it, and be careful about where you're investing your own energies, your thoughts, and your feelings, because make sure that they're invested in a way that can bring you the kind of consequence that you're really looking for in life. That's it.
Thank you. Yeah, so great to be part of this grand adventure with you, Michael, and to all of you.
And I you. Thank you for listening.